like no clear coat. It's like they just sprayed the top of, I don't know what to do. I paid so much money for this. And just chunks of what chunks of No one talks about how difficult it is to get good lighting in the fall. In the direct sunlight is just awful. Then you go in the shade and then you get like light beams everywhere. So I'm gonna be filming just the passenger side, which works out anyways because I have some updates on kind of everything that's been going on with the car. It'd be kind of like a parts update like the one I did last year. So I have some videos of me kind of working on all the parts that I put on the car and all of the trials and tribulations I went through, especially with the lip. So start with that. The lip is finally back on the car. Ton of issues getting this thing painted. I've been sitting here forever trying to scrape off all this 3M tape that I have on it. So I have to add some extra support to this section of the lip. You can kind of see the warp here. It droops right after the bumper ends here. So I'm gonna get some spacers to hold up these sections to the bumper. Okay, so update on this lip. I got this done by a body shop. I have a hand injury and it sucks trying to spray paint. So I was like, let me pay some good money and get this done nice. Yeah, my mistake, the debris that is all over this. Like this especially, there are chunks of dust. I swear, like, what is it, like pizza crust? Like, how do you get dust that big? Like, I swear the guy must have been eating on top of it. Here, this lip, it just doesn't have clear coat. A bit hard to show, but you can see kind of the defects in the paint there. The like wavy. So yeah, the most important parts of the lip just cracking. The whole thing is cracked. Especially here, it cracked and chipped the paint off immediately. You can see some of the lines there, and there's hairline cracks all over. Like there, you can kind of see crinkling. Yeah, there's some of the lines. There was some remnants of tape. I don't know, I'm assuming that's parts they didn't want to sand, even though I did most of the sanding for them. Not even that was painted. I have to voice record this one because I was just ranting the entire time, but this is the second time they painted it. They took it back, I complained, and they redid it, and this is what they gave me. As you can see, the crack is even worse. It's spreading up into the paint, so clearly that's going to keep on chipping. They tried to use those little paper clips, which you can't use with this type of plastic, so it failed. At least they like kind of spit some paint onto the ends this time. As you can see, they clearly didn't use any type of high build primer. So here I'm just showing where all those little paper clip things were put in. So what they did, they used a machine sander, obviously heated up those welds, and then broke them and then tried to redo them. So that's why there's this giant crack and all these little really badly done repairs. Luckily, my weld guy was able to fix it for me, and this is what this job is supposed to look like. Now it's finally on the car. I beefed up all the construction. I have to plasti dip that one bolt, but now you can kind of see where the middle of it attaches there. On the corners, I added these two supports. They're literally something that I just got off of like Home Depot. They're like a metal spacer. Got a screw to go right through the bumper. I would have done a bolt, but kind of a design as I go kind of thing. So I didn't have a bolt long enough to go from the bottom all the way to the top. But it's an easy fix to just drill a hole in there and then I can fix that next year. At some point this lip is gonna have to come off if it gets damaged or repainted. So I wanted to make it a little bit easier to do that. I have, I think, 2 or 3 bolts on both sides with washers and lock nuts so that those can be mostly taken apart really easily, and then I have sheet metal screws there, and then the same thing on that side. And then the nice thing I did here was, I don't know if you could tell from some of the pictures or the videos, but the lip used to kind of, it still does it a little bit, but it was basically falling off. Like that whole end was drooping down and it was like twisting towards the car. So I kind of fixed all that, and I was finally able to connect it to the bottom of the bumper. And this is like solid. Like it's really on there. It's really not going anywhere. And in the front too, doing a pull test, like this is not going anywhere. Nice crack. Thank you, body shop. It's a lot more stiff and it's definitely gonna be a lot more straight. And hopefully I never have problems with it again for a really long time. So then we can come around and look at my lovely door handles that I painted myself. I have some clips from that. So we're starting off with my dramatic masking skills. I'm covering up the back of the handle, and then obviously I'm propping up the lever because I don't want to take these apart. And then of course they come in shiny plastics. You have to sand them for an ungodly amount of time. And now here I am confidently using the wrong primer once again. No! The base coat was obviously really annoying to put on and get around those handles. I hope you enjoy my mulch props over there. And then this is the paint I use. I think I did 3 coats. This is the clear coat. It was mostly fine. It was just super orange peeled. Then after like days and days of buffing and polishing, this is what they look like. The paint job is pretty good. It's really smooth. There's some scratches in there because passengers suck, but overall really good. Not having any issues with them. The only problem, and I do this every single time except for the side skirts, was they are a little bit blue. Once again, did an oops, and instead of using white primer, which I knew was a huge problem, I got gray primer, which is still a huge problem. When you're painting with black, never use gray or white primer, you have to use black. And yeah, this was the last thing I painted before realizing that that was a problem too. So now I have gray handles. They're not that bad, at least they're the OEM color. You can kind of see the metallic there. And they're new handles, so they're not popping out of the door anymore. I think I have my old ones. I can kind of go over what happened with those, but they open really solid, which I love so much. It's so nice. The hole here is gone, or it's mostly gone, enough that I can wash the car and not worry about water getting in the door. These are the old ones, and I just wanted to kind of go over what happened and what the back of them looks like. This is what the thread insert is supposed to look like, and this is what happens when they're coming out of your door. Completely like blown apart. And on the passenger side, both of them are. So I have no idea how this thing was even hanging onto the door. So yeah, if you are dealing with a handle that's starting to pop out of the door, before knowing that this is what happened, I thought that maybe this thread insert just came out and I could just glue it back in, kind of like how that looks, but this was absolutely like not salvageable whatsoever. So definitely if you're going to take apart your door to investigate this, have extra handles prepped and ready. The side skirts, unfortunately, they're painted. I figured out all of the hardware for them, but this is my last weekend before storing the car, and this was really painful for me to do. I spent way too much time and it took all day, and I didn't have time for these, and I'm tired. But I do have some clips of how that all went. So I was able to paint them. It didn't, as you can see, it didn't go super well. Something about the primer wasn't really working. Excuse the dust, they've been sitting for a while. The paint was going on really horribly. I do think that I can probably wet sand this. At least, like, this is the most important part. This doesn't really matter. And one thing, as you can see, the bend here, they're very soft. Even more soft when they're in the sun. So it's a bit of a concern that these are enough holes in that the hang is enough to actually keep it straight, because the whole point of getting a one piece was to not have it dip and like wave. What I'm gonna try to do is have some shims with holes in them that stick out at each one of these points to kind of hold the underside of it. All right, so these are how the side skirts ended up. So if you've seen before in the other video, the finish on them was really orange peely, as you can tell a little bit of a difference here. So I was able to hit these with some compound and polish. There is some kind of like fine scratches still in it. I could work that out, but I really kind of don't care that much because these are underneath the car. So the issue I was having with these initially was the polyurethane was so thin that when it was held up, especially in the sun, it would warp like a noodle. So this is how I fixed that so far. So I took some cord hides, and this is just PVC. These are actually what I use, so it's the top part of it there. 3M tape to the top of it, sanded it down so it had something to adhere to, and it actually is holding on really well. But of course, plastic to plastic, you can never really touch a bond unless you kind of melt it in, and it's that specific type of plastic, so I would never kind of expect this to last on its own. So that's where my bracket system comes in. My idea was to use wood shims because they're extremely light, and all of the metal brackets I was looking into were just way too heavy. But now that I think about it, this is probably not going to last too long. Okay, so update, different day. These came in the mail. Pretty tough trying to find something because I needed more than 3 inches, and a lot of these are only 3 inches. So these were actually 3.5, which worked out. They happened to just touch PVC, which I think should be enough as long as it's there. I mean, it's not great. I wish it would cover the whole thing, but this will definitely last a lot more than the wood, and they're metal. Also, this is really random, but I went to a junkyard. Okay, so still haven't cleaned the engine. It's still really dirty. Anyways, I do have a cold air intake that I'm working on. Maybe I'll put some videos of how that looks and kind of what I have to do to repair that. But I still have this box for now. And also I want to return to this if it happens to give me a check engine light, which the FL2s, of course they're notorious for not liking cold air intakes, and they'll throw a code and then run lean. So at this car's age, I really don't want that to happen. And I'm really picky about seeing the check engine light. So if I put that on and that happens, I'll probably take it off and put this back on. But not sure if anyone was able to see it before. I was missing a clip, and it wasn't so much that the clip fell off, it actually broke from the bottom of the box. And I was trying to figure out how that happened forever, but it turns out because I have a K&N filter in this, and if anyone has worked with a K&N filter, just the box filter, on this engine, you will probably know the absolute pain it is to close this thing with it. And when I first got it, I didn't know, I just shoved it in there and muscled it closed. And eventually it snapped the clip off and I had to get a whole new bottom box. So I went to a junkyard, got the bottom box. It was rusty everywhere, so I fixed that, painted these clips. It's really not a big deal, but also the coilovers. So I finally got a response from BC. I have some clips about all the parts that I got for that, but they honored my warranty even though it was way expired, and they sent me new parts. BC coilovers, one of my videos I mentioned that I was pissed off with them because they were really loud. My front one was making a lot of noise, and it actually caused the front wheel to skip while I turned, so it was kind of a big problem. And I was trying to get a hold of BC for a while, even though my warranty was up to see like what they could do, and I didn't really get much of a response. And then I sent them videos again and highlighted the fact that it's making the wheel skip and it's this huge problem. And they did actually end up sending me for free replacement parts that they thought were the problem. So I got a new spring, the new, I think it's called an isolator seat, and this bearing. With BC coilovers, usually this bearing has a lot of trouble, like debris gets in there and it causes issues. So I'm really glad they sent me this. Hopefully this solves my issue. Unfortunately, I couldn't get those done this season because the place I was taking it to, because I know absolutely nothing about rebuilding coilovers, their alignment machine broke. So now I'm waiting. I store the car next week, so I really don't want to push something like coilovers being rebuilt into 1 week before I need to store it. So that'll just have to wait till next year. And then the last thing, it's kind of hard to see because I'm not in the sun, but this whole passenger side quarter panel that I had rewrapped has now been buffed and recoated with Halo ceramic coating, and the finish is super nice. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I'll put some pictures, but I found out that vinyl wraps can stain really bad if you don't coat them. And I totally thought it was just these two panels that needed it, but as the days go on and I see this thing in the sun, I realized the whole car needs it. Surprisingly, not the bumper or the hood or the fenders, but the door, even this door, is starting to stain. Can't really see it now. Maybe I'll put up some extra pictures of everything else, but all of this has like drip stains. Basically the whole car has some stains on it, and next year I'm gonna have to get the whole thing buffed and recoated with Halo, which will look really nice because that looks really, really nice, but it's gonna be expensive, which sucks. I think that's it for all the extra parts I was able to kind of get on this car before summer was over. A lot of things got delayed, but on a good note, the car was actually driving really great this entire summer, which is nice. But at least I got half of the things on, and next summer everything's ready to side skirts and get the coilovers fixed and all of that as soon as possible. So I'm thinking there's going to be a lot more time next year to get more done.